So, what else do you like about the whole dancing thing? So it is about health if you do the right things. We're not talking about starving yourself to death or being anorexic. We're
Hmm.
also not talking about going on when you have an huge injury. Although I can understand that when like a couple of hundred people are watching or a couple of thousand people are watching, and and there's no spare for you, that's going to be a little bit challenging if you stop. But then again, if you can't stand on your foot anymore, then well,
Yeah,
you're going to continue
that's the
on.
end of the story. But sometimes you get injured during the routine while you're on stage, and then you still have to continue, right?
Yeah.
But okay. What I like about dancing, well, it's also creative expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about the 7 ways to express yourself. For me, it's about expression, especially contemporary dance. That's all about emotions and um, how to translate that into body movement and on music and stuff like that. So it's also an emotional outlet. In one of the classes, we're now doing um, uh, dances based on emotions. So we have to switch from happiness to anger to jealousy, and it's like, okay, one of the girls said, yeah, now I can finally let out what I'm feeling all day, because normally during the workday you have to keep your composure, right? Like, okay, yeah, I totally don't agree with you and I'm very, very mad, but I need to keep this job, so let's be agreeable. But during dance classes, you can just let loose and express those emotions, and I like that as well. Yeah.
I love it. It's so funny what you're saying. You can't see it because you're still seeing a black screen, but I was smiling about it and totally nodding and agreeing with you about that one. So, if you can switch easily, or you're learning to switch easily between emotions, how about switching between mindsets? So, from um, okay, I'm taking a break to I need to have things done before one.
Hmm.
Afterwards, then we get to the refresh routine. So that's basically after things have been done by one, lunchtime, do
Yeah.
things. And then the question, of course, is how do you get back in your routine again? And what Brendan said is actually a different routine from the one which is done by one. So for me, the done by one routine is I set the intention, which I do for the other one too. I put on music, which I could actually do for the other one too. But I work on certain priority things, and those things, of course, can change depending on the refresh routine. So I still don't have an answer when it comes to the refresh routine. I think it's about when I just want to empty my mind, and I don't mean a brain dump, but
Mhm.
literally like zero. I do these logical puzzles, like
Oh, yeah.
Sudoku, for instance, or Japanese puzzling. Um, Yeah, but it's about switching the mindset that you say, okay, now I'm taking a break and now I have to get back at it. Do you think that because you are now focusing on switching emotions rapidly, that
Mhm.
that also helps with your mindset and switch into active mode again? Like, okay, now I'm going to work on this, that, or the other.
Yes, and also I think all my years as a dancer, I learned how to switch pretty rapidly, because even if you have a bad day, you still have to perform. Um, so that mindset needs to switch instantly. Even if you have a fight backstage, on stage, nobody has to see that you had that fight. You have to pretend that you're lovers or whatever. Um, so that has mentally trained me to switch, I think, pretty fast. And I think for me personally, what helps switch help me switch rapidly is taking a couple of deep breaths, like belly breaths, because it's that releases the tension that you're feeling. And also, for me at least, changing my posture, because when I'm angry or sad, I'm like hunched over, right? Most of the time. And just opening up like your shoulders and your chest will help you feel more free. And I don't know, maybe it's like the blood flow that is opening up again. That helps with the um, change of mindset, like your brain gets more oxygen, and
Well, it's
I have to delve into that
literally
deeper.
it's
Yeah.
literally everything, because instead of having a closed posture, you're opening up your shoulders, your chest,
Yeah.
so you can breathe more easily.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that actually change. So if you share this, so you're talking about discipline, you're talking about creativity, you're also talking about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing, because one of the things that we have to be able to do is summon the energy.
Yeah.
So depending on what I'm doing, sometimes in the group coaching, when there are not too many people, I'll just say, okay, I need to eat something, and then we can start, and then I'll be eating
Mm-hmm.
while at the same time listening to what's going on, because I also want to know what's going on with people, so I can adjust my training on what's needed at that moment. So creativity, posture, mindset. Now,
Yeah.
creativity, discipline, and mindset linked to posture. If I say those three things, is
Mm-hmm.
what you would like to work on? Is that your message?
I I'd like to explore more of that in the near future, and I am currently also exploring that more and more these days. Also, I'm thinking a lot about stuff like perfection, because dancers usually have a tendency to strive for perfection, while that's more of an illusion than a real thing, and can stop you from progressing in life, basically. Um, so I think there's an element of that also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to perfection, when you're being creative, and I don't mean on stage, um,
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as perfection. At some point, I'm holding the hand out again. I was like, okay, I want the notes to be positioned in a certain way, and I changed a few things. So there were different symbols on there,
Mm-hmm.
and well, I actually made a credit card size right now. I still need to print it though. I'm waiting for printer cable to be delivered. But apart from that, um, I do realize when it comes to life and death situations, surgery, but also performances,
Yeah.
it
No
has to be
surgery.
perfect. When we're talking about zeros and ones, when we talk about computers, of course, we want it to be perfect too. So there are a lot of things, but I do say to people there is no such thing as perfection,
Mm-hmm.
because when we talk about done by one, you either get out there what you've got and it's not
Yep.
perfect, or you don't get it out there at all
Yes.
and
Yes.
you don't have anything at all.
Yeah.
And something, even though it's not perfect, is always preferable over not having anything at all.
Exactly. Exactly. That's helping me a lot. And also, I've done this course about writing, Ship 30. So for 30 days straight, you have to post something online that you've written. And I try to do it before work starts, because I'm just a corporate employee right now. Um, but that means that I have a strict deadline of 8:30 or maybe 9 if I stretch. But then it has to be online. Otherwise, I won't have the time for it. And then sometimes it's like, okay, I've read the lesson, I've watched the video. now I have only 10 minutes to post something. It won't be pretty, but I'll put it out there. And that's uncomfortable because it's not perfect. But it will never be perfect because I'm still a beginner and I need to be okay with being a beginner and learning and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
then we get back to mindset again. The other light died. You still can see it because you're still looking at the black screen. Of course, I do have lights behind me, but they always seem to have light, when you go live. So what I like is I hear a lot of things. You get into mindsets again. You have to accept that you're a beginner, but you also are talking about things need to be done quickly. So just like summoning the energy, you have to be able to change your mindset to, okay, I only have like 10 minutes. I need to be able to prepare and get it out there. So no such thing as perfection, but I do want to get the message across.
Yep.
So I actually love a lot of the things because all those things that you're talking about, especially the discipline part, and then related to the last thing you're saying, so being able to switch straight away to where I don't know if you want to be. I think it should be also want to be where you need to be, and hopefully also where you want to be, because that's one of the reasons I'm talking about doing things with fun nowadays, because we don't feel obligated all the time. We also want to enjoy what we're doing. And when we're talking about switching your mindset, it's probably because you're going to do something you really appreciate doing, or which is going to help you down the line. So the fun aspect is somewhere there, whether it's at the beginning, during, or at the end. But yes, I think that part about the emotions, about switching mindsets, about also getting into the habit of, okay, I'm going to do it. That's something that is so important for so many people out there, because a lot of people are actually afraid to go there. So what would you tell those people?
First of all, that's good to hear that is maybe something that I can provide value in to other people, because as you know, I've been exploring the idea of maybe starting something for myself. So getting that feedback of what is of value to people is valuable to me. So thank you for that. What would I say to those people? First of all, it's not something that you'll learn in 1 minute or 5 minutes. It's years and years and years of practice for me that I have developed this mindset, and that I'm able to switch things up so fast. In the beginning, I was terrible at it. I mean, I started as a teenager. I was in puberty. During puberty, you emotions take over, right? It's not you. If you're angry, and you're on stage angry, and it shows. So it's not like it's something that you can learn instantaneously, but it is something that's very, very, very worthwhile to learn and to have a daily or weekly practice around it. It will help you in your life and show up in life the way you want to, not because you're feeling those emotions. And because sometimes emotions take over, and afterwards you think, oh my god, what have I done? I was angry for a moment, but that is not what I intended to do, or how I intended my relationship to be with that person. But being able to take a deep breath, think about how you're going to respond, and changing your mindset and your posture is very, very valuable in my experience. Yeah.
I agree. So basically, it's about learning a new habit, creating a habit, and then sustaining the habit. You don't know this, but during the live, I talked about, so for those who are wondering, live, well, I did another live on YouTube and Facebook earlier. When it comes to, okay, I just lost what I was going to say.
During the live, you were talking about creating a habit or something.
Habits.
Yeah.
So when it comes to habits, at some point, I'm not sure which, 2022. It was 2022. So during January up till September 2022, I did I don't think it was Friday Night Live. I think I went live on Wednesday or something. But I did it like every week, and I was doing it at a fixed time. Why? Because there were 3 other people who did the same thing. So there was Cinnamon, there was Terry and Bonnie, and Terry and Bonnie had a show together. We were all part of the training from Evan Carmichael, the YouTube expert, the one who I danced salsa with. And so we helped one another, and then one after another stopped doing it. And I was in Chicago with Joe, and we were like, okay, when are we going to do what? And of course we were tired, and we were sharing the room, so things didn't entirely work out, and I stopped doing it altogether for over a year until December 2023. And then since then I've been posting every day on Instagram. So, and at some point I started doing my Friday night lives weekly, and I've been doing them weekly ever since, unless there was something really weird going on. But normally I'm there. I even did it at the airport when I was traveling. And I also had to deal with distractions back then. Being at an airport isn't a distraction, but also staying with other people caused certain distractions too. So talking about that and talking about creating the habit. So basically you say it takes years and years to actually have created that habit. Well, I get you. So usually they say if you're really quick, you can do it in 30 days. Normally they would say 90 days. And I experienced myself that it can just all of a sudden stop because of circumstances. And then you need to pick it back up again. But if you were to talk about those steps, how to get to becoming a person who can switch instantly to someone who's disciplined, can summon the energy, can summon the right mindset. And before I let you answer that one, I don't know if you ever did this, but in order to be happy, sometimes people say, okay, to distance yourself from a situation, think about something which really makes you happy, really happy thoughts, and then go and do what it is that you need to do. So say that we're in front of the camera, then by thinking about something happy or listening to music which makes you happy, basically like setting the intention, you immediately switch to that feeling because, you know, when there is a certain trigger, the brain can actually go there.
Yep.
So what do you think about that one? And then the other question was, how about steps? What would you say? So first the trigger, the switch.
First the trigger. Yes, music helps me immensely. I just put on a happy song, and then I'll get happier, or some song that is related to a happy memory, and then I'll get instantly transported back to that moment in time. So for me, that is a quick way to switch my mindset. But music is not always available, especially if you're like backstage somewhere and you need to go on stage. listening to music is not always an option because it makes too much noise and you have to be quiet. So during those times, some breathing, closing my eyes, and just focusing on a mental picture of a happy moment in time will also help me. Um, what about steps? That's a good question, which I haven't really thought about before. So it's a good challenge. I don't know if I necessarily have an answer right now for you.
Well, you don't have to.
No, but it's something I'll think about because that's a good way to um, help people with yeah. Good.
Develop that discipline. Well, what I've learned when it comes to frameworks and other things, like for instance the habit when it came to going live weekly,
Mm-hmm.
is I have learned so many things from, let's say, those distractions that I talked about before. So when things go haywire, actually that's usually a thing that is like, okay, so I need to focus on that one. What can I do? So you run into something, and then the question is, what can I do to solve this? And when you have enough of those things, of course, you don't want to have a lot of things, but when you do, it actually helps you to come up with solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have enough of those solutions, then you will develop the steps by itself. So you will develop your own framework.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't agree with you that you don't want to have things that go wrong. I am very much for the idea that you want things to go wrong because the more things go wrong, the more mistakes you make, the faster the feedback loop is, and the faster you'll
yeah,
learn,
I
and the more
agree with
value you
that
can
one.
provide for
Yeah.
others. Yeah.
Well, that's why I said you don't want too many things to go wrong. But I wrote this blog post last Monday. You've read it,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it was about adapting, about letting go, and adapting and saying, okay, I didn't want to be in this situation, but I am nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
So I can roll back, lay over, and play that, or well, basically,
I've done that. Yeah,
yeah,
been
or,
there.
yeah, or I can say, okay, I can be sulking all the time and be angry and frustrated, or I try to find a solution and I adapt. And I guess that's the moments that you're confronted with something and you need to adapt. That's when we come to solutions. So one of the things you said to me, I know what my message is. So speak up, speak out, share your story. If I talk to people and I tell them really quickly what it is about, I basically say it's about perspective. When people don't see any perspective anymore, I'm there to help them get perspective back again. I do so by teaching them to speak up, speak out, so they're seen, heard, and understood. So it's a little bit longer, but that's basically the message that I want to get across.
Yeah.
If I look back now, then I can say this was something that was already going on. Well, actually, in the first 9 months when I was born, after 9 months, I had to go to hospital for a month. Well,
Oh wow.
if you go from a home where there's a lot of music, my mom played the piano 3 hours a day. I had a older sister. She was 1 year old when I went to the hospital, almost 2 years old. And my brother was 3 years old, going towards 4 years old. So all of a sudden it was gone. And I was in a white, sterile environment where people didn't care if I was hungry or not, whether I was in wet diapers or not. That's the way it was. There were no colors or attention like there is nowadays. Then take into consideration that I got bullied as early as kindergarten because I didn't know how to act around other kids, probably because of that hospital period already. And then later on, you don't entirely see it when it comes to you, but I assume that underneath the painted hair, there's blonde hair, whereas no, it's brown.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You're not a redhead, right?
No. Very dark brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, when I was growing up, had blonde hair, blue eyes.
Mm.
You know that one, right? So
Yeah,
people like me
stereotypical here.
with the black hair and the brown eyes, that was something that was very unheard of. There were few people from Indonesia or the Indonesian parrots or Dutch Indonesian parrots.
Oh, do you also have
Here.
Indonesian heritage?
Yes.
Oh, me too. Yay.
That explains the dark eyes. Yeah, now I
Yep.
get it. Yes, now we're there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more obvious when you look at me. Well, not necessarily that it's in the Indonesian heritage, because I've got the Portuguese eyes, which are the round, big eyes from
Yeah.
my Portuguese great grandmother. But apart from that, people would be looking at me like, who is she? And especially the dark eyes. There was something. I mean, it's not intentionally, but apparently my eyes seem to be more piercing, and people feel uncomfortable because they feel like I can look right into their soul. so, so that's people didn't know how to deal with that, so I got bullied a lot. Of course, that if you take everything into consideration, that didn't work either for speaking up and speaking out. So I didn't say anything at all. And then at some point, I did some sort of holiday job, and I was working with adults, and they took me seriously and they listened to me. And that's when I made the switch and I became way more outspoken. But if we go fast forward, it's a decade ago that I actually tripped on a brick. I twisted my ankle. I tore the ligament on the inside of my ankle. A bone started shifting, which was a tendon, which was the tendon was attached to that bone. So basically, the tendon could pop out through the ligament, depending on what I was doing. So that's why I couldn't stand on my left foot anymore. I actually couldn't even have something on my lap anymore. Everything just hurt, basically. So I wasn't taken seriously. I didn't get crutches till like 6 months later. They didn't want to do surgery even when they found out what was going on. So I had to plead and beg, and then even then they did part of the surgery, and it took another 4 years before I had found someone who was actually willing to do the other half of the surgery. So I had to learn to speak up and speak out, as in I had to let them know I was there and I wanted something, but I also had to let them know why I didn't agree with them and what I thought was the solution. So I had to come up with clarity, as in I took a lot of pictures showing them, because when I would go there, it wouldn't be like red and swollen, because I knew what to do as a therapist, right? So they couldn't see it. So I had to capture those moments when it was looking really bad. So friends of mine, we used markers and everything to point it out and to explain the story. So that's how I learned to actually express myself with clarity and also not to give up, because I've learned that, the first time around, people dismiss you. And then they think if you're serious, then you'll come back another time. So you have to go back a second and third time. By the time people usually, not always, usually listen. So that's basically how I came to the whole speaking up, speaking out thing. But looking back on things, I'm like, oh, but actually it was something that happened from basically the moment I got born. So when you think about the whole discipline thing, and especially switching mindsets, we have talked about dance, of course. You also talked about that this is something that you've been working on ever since puberty, ever since you became an adolescent. So what if you think about this, what would you say would be triggers which led you into, oh, actually that makes sense, that message of switching your mindset on the spot?
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question really is.
Okay, so the speaking up, speaking out, my message, I when I look back now, I know it's not just about from when I twisted my ankle and couldn't stand on 2 feet anymore, but it's from way before. The way I looked, you know, the origin I have, the being in the hospital for a month when I was only 9 months old. So there were a lot of things that led up to the message of speaking up, speaking out. Now, we learned from you that one of the things which what you learned the hard way, it took you a lot of time, but now you can instantly switch your mindset. You can switch by using emotions or doing other things to, like, okay, I need to be present, I need to be active, I need to smile. You can do it. So if that were to be your message, so how to teach people to do those things. So I told you about the whole thing leading up, the whole timeline. I do things. So would you say there were a number of things, moments, which were defining for what could be your message?
Good question. Good question. I have to think about that.
You made that decision at some point when you were a teenager. What led you to make that decision?
The decision to switch my mindset, or the decision to go dancing, or
Those are good
because
questions.
the decision to go dancing was not made while I was a teenager. I've always been dancing since I was small. I have always, the way I played with my friends while I was in elementary school was by pretending to be the Spice Girls or something and making up a choreography, and I teach them, and then we'll perform for my grandma. Basically, that was one of the ways I played with my friends. The decision to switch my mindset is basically because dance became so important in my life that I wanted to do a good job at the competitions or the performances that I was doing, because I did it once or twice, and then I did it like half-heartedly, and it didn't go so well. So I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I really, really don't want to disappoint my dance teacher or whoever was there at the time. And I think that's that's the first thing that comes to mind. That and I don't want to disappoint my friends, because they were all there to cheer me on, and they were also dancing, and I want to keep up with them, and because they've been dancing for a longer time than me, and then you don't want to fall behind, right? It's stuff like that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, I hear two things. So the dancing was an essential part of it, because you said you started by teaching the other ones and pretending to be a Spice Girl. So at that moment, you already switched mindsets. You already switched your persona into one of being a teacher or being a Spice Girl. It just evolved when you realized that in order to perform, so you already started performing because you already did it for your family too. But then you realized I cannot perform like only half prepared. I need to go full on if I want to do competitions. So that's basically probably a next level. And there might be levels in between. I don't know.
Probably.
But then
Yeah.
you also hang out with people who your friends were already doing it way longer than you did. So they were teaching you things and you didn't want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
So those are all moments, defining moments where you got to realize, hey, if I want to dance, if I want to be like a Spice Girl, if I want others to do the same thing, then I need to teach them. Apart from that, maybe you like teaching them. And then, oh, if I want to be performing at a certain level and do it in the company of people who can actually get me to the next level, then I need to step up. And then, of course, doing those dance classes then learned you to actually, okay, but now that you are going to that level, now you need to learn that even though you have a fight, now you need to smile again because you need to go on stage. Even though you've hurt yourself, you still need to go on stage and go do it.
Yeah.
So I believe you have a number of defining moments. You just weren't aware of it yet.
Yeah. And you're really good at pointing those out. I've noticed over the last few weeks that I've gotten to know you. You're really great at recapping what I'm saying and bringing it all together and pointing out things that are just because it's like this is my life, right? So it's not obvious to me that those are special moments or defining moments. It's usually we are blind to what makes us special or unique or how we can be of value to other people because it's like normal. Doesn't everybody think or is that way?
No,
Nope.
they don't.
No.
I think we are kind of alike, and maybe I didn't realize this. It's because partially we have similar backgrounds. And for those who don't know, when so the Dutch Indonesian people were actually the Dutch people who were a Dutch citizen while living in Indonesia, and in the during that time, depending on what color you were, so there were like the really Dutch, the white people, as in blonde with blue hairs. The men usually came over to Indonesia, where of course there were the local people over there. They got babies because, well, they needed to, get their thing done. And if the kids were white enough, they would take them back to their wife, who would be in the Netherlands. But at some point, so there would already be a battle going on about what the color of your skin would be. If you were too dark, then you weren't accepted by Dutch people. If you were too fair-skinned, you wouldn't be accepted by the Indonesian people, and usually you wouldn't be accepted at all. So, of course, if you were a Dutch citizen, you would speak Dutch. You were not allowed to talk the local language, Malaysian language. Which is not be compared with Malaysia, but well, it's the way they called it. And then in the 50s, they had to make a choice, either become Indonesian citizens, or they had to move, they had to leave and go somewhere else. So a lot of people back then went back to Holland, or for the first time to Holland. My mom went to Holland for the first time. My dad was a Dutch citizen. He was raised in Holland and went to Indonesia because his dad died during World War II. And he wanted to fulfill a dream of his father, who had died during World War II. So then he went to Indonesia. He was 22. My mom was 14. He fell in love with her and he said, "I'm going to marry you." No discussion possible. So a lot of people back then went either to Holland, but there are also a lot of people who went to Canada. A lot of siblings from my dad went to Canada. There were people who went to Australia. My mom got banned from going to Australia because she was too dark. And they don't know many dark people apparently in Australia. So otherwise I would have been born over there. But anyway, then again, the same thing happened. So my parents went to New Guinea, And then the same thing happened again somewhere in the 50s, early 60s. So that's when she came to Holland, when my parents came over there. So there is, back then, when you grew up here, it was like, stop talking nonsense, stop complaining, just adjust to the culture. Hence why I don't speak Bahasa Indonesia or the other.
Neither.
Yeah, I know I can say sate ayam and you know, all those things. I can order food. I can say selamat makan, you know, bon appetit. But that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, we didn't learn any other cultural habits. Of course we do have them, because later on you realize, oh, we are eating with a spoon and a fork instead of fork and a knife, or we're using chopsticks. You know, those are those little small details which give away. And we probably use more color compared to other people when wearing clothes. But it was of course, because they also came right after World War II, and the country was starting to build up again. There's a whole different mindset. It's like, don't complain, just do it. And I do believe, knowing what you just said, that we might actually have a similar mindset, which requires us to actually shift that mindset straight away on the spot to, even if you don't like it, just smile, just go do it. Yeah, because if you look at Asian culture, if you wanted to say no, but you had to say yes, either your head got chopped off, you know. So there were severe punishments if you didn't agree. So they learned to have two faces, whereas in Holland, I believe we are more straightforward. If we don't like it, we say it. We still have to do it. So, and maybe we don't say it straight away, but I do believe that it shows on our faces. We don't smile when we don't agree. We might not say it, you know, talking to you. We might say it behind your back, but we don't say yes when we mean no. We just keep quiet instead.
Yeah.
So, and usually we do speak up about it at some point. So we're not quite people who just agree with something. At some point we're going to, you know, protest about it. I mean, we're very good at having protests over here. Way too good. So I don't know. Do you agree with that? I just came up with it. But
no, it went to my mind when you said about mindset shifts. Growing up, you have to always go with whatever the elders are saying, and even if you don't agree, it's always you have to say yes, and you always have to. I see it in my family a lot, that more so than in myself, that they have like a mask that they show the outside world, basically. At least I call it a mask. And then when they're with their own family unit, then they'll say, "Oh my gosh, this and that, and I don't understand why this and that's happened, and why this and this person was like that." And then they'll tell you the truth, and I'm like, why couldn't you just say that, at least a version of that, directly to that person? Because I've grown up in the Netherlands, right? So it's like, I'm also partly that culture, and I see my environment just doing that. Just not my Indonesian family, but my Dutch family does that. So it's always been an interesting thing to see. And growing up, I felt like I had to show the outside world that kind of mask also, but I've grown out of it, luckily. Mostly not. There's always something, you know, sometimes when you're stressed, and it comes back for a second, but yeah.
Well, it might help you. Um, it might help you understand things a little bit better as to why you are doing it. So I'm going to wrap up things a little bit. So
Hmm.
talking about Dumb by One, of course,
Oh
we
yeah.
have to work on the things which are most important to us prior to one.
Hmm.
So if I talk for myself, besides that, I love talking about Done by One and also getting back into deadlines and distractions. I also got the opportunity, and it's kind of funny because you pointed it out, to show people what it's like when I'm coaching people. So when I talk to people, sort of doing collaboration, I usually do it a little bit interview style because I know I get people to be at ease that way when they're not used to talking in front of camera straight away. So basically, interview technique is sort of similar like coaching. Um,
It is.
as
Yeah.
for you, I don't know if you agree, but I believe that I helped you to get a bit of clarity about what's important to you, especially when it comes to the mindset. So, would you say that's helped you to get more clarity on what should be your priority or could be your priority for Done by One?
Um, I think not so much this chat. Well, partly this chat, but what helped more was the talk we had earlier this week when we were on the phone in the evening for a couple of hours. That really helped me set clarity about, okay, this is my priority project. I need to accelerate this because the deadline is end of May. And prior to that, I was like, oh yes, but if I stretch things, I can manage until October or something like that. No, I need to do it by end of May. I need to have that new job. So yes, that has definitely shifted my priorities on Done by One.
Yeah. Well, Brendan talked about it too, right?
Yeah.
So we came from that to actually your job going on. And then, of course, I stressed it a little bit more like, okay, you need to think about that too. So,
Yeah.
for the people who are watching right now or watching at a later moment in time, what would you like to say to them?
What would I like to say to
Some
them?
final words.
Final words. Oh, geez.
Or what
Uh,
would you like to say to me if that works better? Or what would you like to say to Brendan? So three choices.
what
All
would I
of our
like to say to
viewers.
Brandon? Oh, wow. Geez.
Oh,
Um,
I raised the bar.
yes, you raised the bar seriously. Oh my gosh.
Okay, go back
Uh,
to me. What would you say to me?
what
Final
would
last
I
word.
final last words to say to you?
Oh no.
Oh, geez. Now I'm overthinking things.
Yeah, don't. Okay, so what's the first thing which pops up in your mind? Go.
Okay, let's accelerate. Let's lift off. Let's shed that weight and go and make 2025 a great year.
Oh, I love
Yes.
that. I love that. So, um, I don't know what my final last words are. We have talked about so many things. I think the mindset, shifting your mindset, not giving up,
Mm.
but keep going. I think that would be my most important message. And of course, if I show the handout, that makes sense because I'm about speaking up and speaking out, and I want you to do it in a fun way. But yes, um, being able to actually say what's on your mind and then actually go work on it despite doubts, fears, people working against you, saying, no, don't do it, but staying true to yourself, being the authentic version of yourself. And be that with fun and with proud, with a smile. And if you're colorful, then be colorful. It's okay to be you. Yeah, I've got blue hair. You can see it. but I've got blue hair. So, but yes, that's what I would say to people. Like, dare to be yourself, and if you don't, write it down, so you can figure out what's going on, or talk to other people about it. But in order to shift into a different state of mind, you need to know what's been bothering and bugging you. So I want to say a huge thank you to you for talking so long on this interview, on this collaboration, because this was something we are doing together
Yes.
because of the Done by One. And for those who don't know, I'm so grateful for Rebel because she is one of those accountability partners. And it's so nice to go back and forth, whether it's on the phone or now on the camera, about the things that we are learning and doing, and how to move forward. And it's invaluable. I cannot stress how invaluable it is to be able to talk to someone about the things that are important to you.
True. Thank you so much for inviting me, Lexi.
It's
been really fun.
Great
first time on live.
We can do it more often. I love to do those things, and people always say they feel comfortable around me, make them feel at ease. So, well, you are the one who can say I'm right about that or not. I just say it's what people told me. So, and I love, sharing things, because I believe that if there have been people watching this, and I believe, and I actually already said so, we can make a difference, maybe in things they're thinking about, the way they do things, and they might not know how to make the difference, but at least they are aware of things that can be done differently, and that's the start.
Yes, awareness is everything.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm putting my hands on my heart. You can't see it, but that's what I'm doing. And we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.